Welcome to Technorec. So today I'll show you how to use Sheets API with Node.js. So in the recent past, I've been using Google Sheets for manipulating different types of data, right, for my own use case. And I found out like it has a lot of features, no doubt. It is super powerful, no doubt. But learning those features, so it is quite difficult for a newbie, right? So what I thought, why not use the powerful Sheets API like that Google provides, right? But the problem is the documentation is not that good enough. So I thought, why not just make a tutorial on how to use Google Sheets API and Node.js to automate your scripts, to automate your Sheets data, to manipulate your Sheets data, right? So I'll be showing you in this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to use Sheets API and Node.js to automate your Sheets data. So let's move on. So you see this folder. I've created this folder, Sheets Node, and I have two JSON files, mock JSON files that I've generated from here, right? So you can also generate this random JSON for mocking APIs, right? Okay. So now let's see how can we use Google Sheets API with Node.js or different programming languages, right? So there are a lot of use cases of using Sheets API with a lot of languages, but I'll show you in today's tutorial. I'll show you how to use the Sheets API with Node.js or JavaScript, right? So the Google Sheets API usages are, so we can use that with Google Sheets API. We can use that in client-side JavaScript applications, right? Browser-based applications. And we can use Google also provides Google Apps Script, right? Google Apps Script is a language similar to the JavaScript. That's Google language similar to the JavaScript, but it is the programming environment is already embedded in the Google ecosystem, right? The Google G Suite ecosystem, right? Now there comes Node.js. So it is for running the Google Sheets API, using Google Sheets API on the server side or on the client side applications, or using in the CLI applications, right? So, and we can also use the Google Sheets API with other languages like Python, Java, a lot of extra languages, right? Cool. Now we have two JSONs. I'll tell you why I took two JSONs for this example, but let's just set up our Google Sheets API. So in order to use the Google Sheets API, you have to have a Google Cloud account in which you need to enable the Google Sheets API, right? So how do we do that? Just go to the APIs overview. So go to the APIs overview, click on enable APIs and services, find Sheets API, click on this, click on enable, so as soon as it is done, what we can do is, in order to use any API, we have to authorize that API. We should have an authorization, right? In order to use any API. So what we need to do is we have to create credentials for that API, right? And now the thing is we want to use that API for our CLI application, Node CLI applications. So what we will do is we'll select Sheets API first. So why the search is not working? No worries. So do one thing. Just go to the APIs and services. Go to the Sheets API. Okay. Credentials. Okay. Now create credentials. So what we will do is we will create the credentials for our API. So we don't want to create OAuth client ID because we are not using the Sheets API on client side, right? On browser based environment, we are using it for CLI applications, right? Let's create the Sheets service account name. We can keep this as Sheets automate, right? You can leave the description empty. Now this is also optional. You can grant some roles. So I've currently assigned it as owner. It can do everything. Now the service account is created. You can see that this is the service account. So that's another point of discussion, like what is a service account. But basically you can say that service account is a person, is a virtual person who is acting on behalf of you, right? On behalf of a user, doing all the operations, right, on the server side. Because on the client side there is a user who can do interactions, who can allow, who can authorize, right? But on the back end, on the server side, there is no user. So we have to have a service account which acts on the behalf of the user, right? Okay, let's move on. Now we have a service account. What we need to do is we have to download the service account. Okay, now what we need to do is we have to create a new key, right? So we want to create a JSON key. So what we will do is we will name it credentials.json and we'll save it in Sheets node. Okay, now we have saved our credentials.json in our Sheets node. Now let's head to our Visual Studio Code. Our work here is done, right? We have the service account file. Now this is our service account file, which has all the information that is required to access the Sheets API, right? Okay, now in order to use the Sheets API, what we'll do is we'll first create a Google Sheet, right? In order to manipulate a sheet, we have to have a sheet. Right. Create a blank sheet and name it like test automate. You can also not name it, choose to not name it, leave it unnamed, but no worries. Okay, now we have a sheet, and there's a concept of having multiple sheets inside a sheet. So we have currently one sheet in our sheet, right? Multiple sub sheets, right? So we have a concept of having multiple sub sheets inside a sheet. So we currently have one sub sheet which is named as sheet 1 in our sheet test automate, right? Okay, now let's just move to our Visual Studio Code. So the first thing what we need to do is, in order to automate a sheet, is just import the file system module, right? Import the file system module. Right, now we have to import the file system module. Now what we need to do is we need to have a Google APIs package, which we will use it to access the Google services, right? And let's npm init package name. Okay, we have a packaged JSON file. We will install Google APIs package. We will also install Google Auth library package, because that we will use it to authorize our requests and create a Sheets client, right? Library, sorry. Okay, now let's okay, now we don't need anything. Let's press enter, wait for the packages to get installed. There, we have the packages ready as a development dependencies. Currently I've installed that Google Auth library, and now let's just import them, Google APIs, and now we have Google Auth from Google Auth library, right? Now, in order to access any API, we have to have a scopes. So what are scopes? Scopes are the access levels, like the access levels that we define, that we want to tell to the API, like this is the type kind of data we want to access. Like we have to read the data, we have to write the data, okay, we have to tell the API, or we have to do everything. So currently, as a scope, what I will do is I'll define, like I have to read everything. Like, so let's say if I have to have a read only data, I could have defined this, like I could have defined the scopes like this, right? Read only, but I want to have all the access, like read, write, every access, right? Let's define it this way. Now get both of our mock datas. Let's define both of our mock datas. Data A, let's define as A, right? And JSON dot just parse this data. Fs dot, no, we don't want to do that. Read file sync, but we actually want to import our mock one. Similarly, we want to import our mock 2 data. Okay, and define it as B. Okay, now let's have an async function. Okay, now name this function as something called Sheets automate. Okay, now what we need to do now is we want to define a auth client, right? That auth client we will use that for authorizing or requests to the Google Sheets API, right? So we'll define a key file, right? A key file is something called, a key file is a file which will contain the credentials of our application, right? Which will validate our credentials, our service account, which will take our credentials, right? Now let's move to scopes. It takes scopes, array of scopes, or even it can even take string, right? It can even take a string as a array of strings, or array of or single string. So no worries on that. Let's define our client, which is auth.getClient. Now we have to initialize which API we want to use, which is Google Sheets version 4. Okay, now define our auth client. Define our auth client, which is this. I don't know what happened to it. Okay, so define an auth client. Now what we will do now is we'll get all the rows in our current sheet, if there are any, right? Let's say we already have a data in our sheets. We currently don't have any data in our sheet, right? So what we'll do is we'll first define our auth client, so which is auth. We'll give it spreadsheet ID. Spreadsheet ID, I'll tell you what that is. I'll tell you what range is. So what is the spreadsheet ID? A spreadsheet ID is the unique identifier, right? It's a unique identifier which identifies what sheet we want to access, right? This is the sheet we want to access. This is the sheet we want to access, and the range is, what should be the range of the sheet? Like we have A, B, C, so our ranges can be from A to F, right? From A1 to F2, F1, right? It can be anything, right? So for now, let's just define as sheet 1 range A to A, right? Okay. Now let's see what our function is currently doing, right? Let's try executing our function. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll first automate it. I'll first log it, get rows. I'll also log get rows in order to show you how this data looks, right? Now what you need to do is you need to call the sheets automate function. It returns a void promise, no worries. Let's just try to compile the code that we had done till now, right? So open the terminal, and now let's go to the directory and just ignore sheets. So you can see the error which says that the caller does not have permissions, right? So why it is saying that? Because we don't have any permission to access this sheet, because this sheet doesn't have the service account permission to access, right? We cannot access this sheet without telling a code that, right, we have to access this sheet, right? And a code should have a permission to access this sheet. So what we can do is just simply copy that service account that we have, paste this service account. So what we need to do is just copy this service account from here and just paste the service account here, right? Now we don't want to notify people and put it as a editor and share the sheet with the service account. Now when we do no sheets.js, tada, we get a 200 response, and see, we are getting undefined. Why? Because we don't have any data, right? In our sheet is completely empty, so we don't have any data. And we can see like we have range A1 to 8000, right? Okay, now what we want to do is, okay, now let's move on and to adding some data to a sheet, right? So let's this is the sheet ID that I was talking about, right? LPS, right? And this is the range, right? And to get data from. So you want to get the data from A to A, right? All of the rows. Now let's define a case if there are keys in the sheet, right? So what we can do is keys in sheet, we can put that as flat, right? And we can spread it. Why we are doing this? Let's see. If we have keys in the sheet, let's say we have this, right? And we just did this, and what we got? We just got a key, right? Just got a key from the sheet, SV, right? BVD SV, got a key from the sheet, right? Now this is what we want. Now keys not in sheet, which we can simply do is create an array, have a new set, right? This is the correct way of doing that, which is a new set. And what you should do is just do this and object dot keys, okay, and take A. Now filter it, right? Filter it with the key, if key is in sheet, this. Now do the same with the B object, done, right? Now we have all the keys which are not in the sheet. Now what we'll define is, we'll define the rows to be added in the sheet, right? So we want to add all the rows, right? We want to add all the rows in the sheet. Rows to be added. Sheet in the map, key A, key B key, right? Want to add this to the sheet. Now we'll define a try catch loop, and what we'll do is we'll put a sheet or spreadsheets.append. So what append will do is it will append the new data from the last row of the sheet, and as our sheet doesn't have any data, let's remove this data. Okay, now our sheet doesn't have any data, it will start appending from here, right? So now let's define the auth, and let's define the spreadsheet ID, which is the same. Now let's define the range. We want to append from sheet A to C from, we have 3 columns, right? 1, 2, 3, right? Now, so this is the resource, right? So value input options is user entered or either raw, right? So what we want is whatever the formatting that we have provided to the sheet, the data should be same, right? The sheet should not internally manipulate the data, format the data, right? That's why we used user entered. Let's just define the resource which will take the values, the rows to be added, right? So this is the array of keys or array of keys that we want to add. Like we just have 3 columns in one row, like, right? First is a key, second is the value of the key, and third is the value of the key for the JSON B, right? Now let's, currently our sheet is empty, right? You can see that our sheet is empty. Now let's just see the magic by compiling the code, right? Just enter node sheets, node sheets.js, compile the file. Let's see what it does. Boom, it returns a 200 response and the post request is done. Now let's go to a sheet and see if the keys are added or not. Boom, you see like all the above 1,000, right? All above, I mean almost 2,000 keys are added to the sheet, right? And in just a milliseconds, and it was just a matter of seconds, and it has added, I mean almost 2,000 keys, 2,000 entries, 2,000 rows to the sheet, and it is so fast and it is so amazing. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching the video. Thank you so much, and please don't forget to subscribe so that I can make great content again and with my next video. And please follow me on social media. The links are in description. Thank you so much.